So we are live. We are broadcasting. We are going to be talking about so many different things today, mainly the 2020 legalization initiative.
Oh, yes. I hope to talk about that.
Michael has been a big part of legalization initiative, not only here in 2020, but all the way back since they've been trying to legalize cannabis in Arizona. He's been a very big advocate for the state of Arizona. Also, obviously, leader of Arizona NORML and so many other great organizations and things he's volunteered his time with. So, Mikel Weisser, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce us to people who might not know you, which I'm sure that's very limited in the state.
Oh, every time that you think you're well known, you run into people that don't recognize you. Keeps you in check. So my name is Mikel Weisser. I am the state director of NORML, which is a national organization for the reform of marijuana laws, like that. Nice. Probably on my hat, too.
Yeah.
And NORML has been around since 1970. I first became aware of NORML spring of my senior year when Playboy magazine published an interview with Keith Stropp, the founder of NORML.
So Playboy introduced you to NORML.
Right. And I was flipping through and I got to the interview and I looked at it like, legalize marijuana?
So you got through
that'll never happen. Where are the tits? And kept on looking,
Oh, so you would interview then tits?
The interview in Playboy magazine's near the beginning of the...
okay. You really have to look for them.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm familiar.
Like, well, that's not going to happen. And little did I know, that I would tell that to the founder of NORML like 40 years later.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so you told him it wasn't going to happen then?
I told him that was my original impression, that, he might as well be talking about reversing the tide or,
Wow. So you thought you would never see legalization in your lifetime?
No, at that point I hadn't even become a marijuana smoker.
Wow.
I would start the following fall, and I lived in a cartel-controlled part of the United States. So for me, with no personal use of cannabis and seeing the dangerous crime that it caused, I was thinking that it was a ridiculous idea.
So you say cartel-controlled part of the United States. What are you talking about there?
So in the 70s and 80s in America, a significant amount of the marijuana that came to the United States from Mexico came through the four-county area of Texas that I call my home. It's where I grew up, the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, the very southern tip. If you think of how Texas comes to a point like that at the very bottom, there.
Okay.
There's 1 million people live there now. It's a couple of the poorest cities in America, with McAllen and Brownsville being the big cities. Back in my time, it was 4 of the poorest counties in America. Wow. Similar but not equal, right? South of the Border Patrol checkpoint, so it was a staging area for undocumented immigrants coming in. It was also a staging area for, cartel materials coming in. My phone is ringing with the guy that's going to hook us up. I hope to.
Okay.
Hey, Todd.
What's going on, Michael?
I am being interviewed right now on Herbal Rising's TV, their Facebook live page right now. See, and
you are live.
There
Todd.
you are. On the phone with me. I was just calling to see if you could connect the Arizona NORML page to the video coming off of the Herbal Rising's Facebook live page, and then more people would be able to get it.
Let me see if I can do that.
You can do that.
I haven't done that before, but I'll try.
We have faith in you, Todd.
See that? He has faith in you. I have faith in you, too.
Todd can't hear us.
That's why I called you.
I'm in your ear, not his.
Oh, but I'm...
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So, I was talking about South Texas, and my mom had been a nightclub singer, and her piano player had gotten shot to death in a marijuana deal. So my childhood experience of it were not a positive thing. And then when I was a teen runaway, the following fall, I went to military school. Really bad choice. I was offered marijuana like 4th or 5th night. I was out on the road and smoked up, and about an hour later, as it's hitting me, the first time, my ride got stopped by a DPS.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and arrested.
Oh my goodness! So your first experience of ever smoking, arrest for the person giving you the ride?
Yeah, he got arrested and I did not.
Wow.
They asked me if I knew anything about marijuana in the vehicle, and I said I don't know anything. I'm just a hitchhiker, because that's all that I really wanted to say.
Yeah.
And we got him out the next day because he had a co-writer with him.
Oh.
I rode with them, continuing on.
So you became part of the group now. Huh?
Right. I rode with them all the way to Seattle, Washington.
So marijuana brings people together.
Right. And it turned out that they had a bunch of marijuana in the vehicle.
In the car?
It was a U-Haul.
Oh, wow.
So lucky me that I said the right thing, which
Yeah.
was, I don't know, because I didn't know. And that turned me around on cannabis, because now I'd had the experience. Once I knew what it felt like, I was in favor of it. I remained a marijuana smoker pretty much about 40 years, which caused me, when I became a school teacher, to be like secret agent marijuana smoker. I didn't smoke in Arizona.
Right.
Like for the first 5 years of being a school teacher.
Uh-huh.
Spring break or summer break, I'd go to Jamaica for vacation, or go back and visit my family in Central Illinois, and then come back here and not smoke for 3 or 4 months straight. And then when my first wife died of a suicide,
Oh my gosh.
our minister, like 3 days in, when I hadn't slept, it was kind of a PTSD thing. I was talking to her dead body, not realizing she was dead, because I woke up and she was dead in my arms.
Oh wow.
So it was. So after a couple of days of being messed up,
Yeah, man, that's gotta be very traumatizing, I would assume.
It was, and it happened here in Arizona. So my minister said, "Michael, I want to take you to lunch." And I got in his truck, and we're driving off to lunch. He says, "I want to do something else." He pulls a joint out of his visor. The minister.
Wow.
Says, "This will help you get some sleep. It'll help you with your memories." And he
Wow.
was right. It just, I was pretty tore up by that, and I still, get flashbacks and have all sorts of things from it. But from that point on, it was like a sign from God. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
definitely a sign from God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been in favor of my cannabis use, instead of trying to hide it and make it secret, because I know the impact it had on me. And then when I remarried, my second wife, Beth Weisser, hats off to Beth Weisser, wanted to go into politics.
Uh-huh.
I was already, a political writer and taught politics. So I thought that was all cool. And she said, on April 20th of 2010, "Hey, I'm going to be in Phoenix. Come with me, and you go to the NORML meeting and see what they're doing."
Okay. So
Right.
This is in 2010 now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I went to the NORML meeting, at that point, Kathy Inman was still Kathy T. It was before she had married Dave Inman. She was the state director.
Uh-huh.
And my wife decided that it was an issue worth fighting for in her campaign. In 2012, I had my own campaign, and she wasn't a consumer, so it was a rhetorical issue for her. For me, it's it's a matter of life and death. Everybody, all our marijuana smokers know that we could get shot to death out on the street because somebody thought they smelled weed.
But she wasn't a part of that, but she saw the third party view of it,
right,
of it happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then when I decided to run myself a couple of years later, I am part of that life.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to come out. I got my first medical card. There was articles about congressional candidate running for office with medical card and that kind of stuff. And
so they made a big deal about it.
Yeah.
So
they made a deal out. Not as big of a deal as I thought it would have more impact.
So did you give them the information that you had the card, or did they find the information that you had the card?
Gave it.
Okay.
Yeah, because tens of millions of Americans have spent their lives hiding.
Yep.
And the only way to stop promoting that is to stop hiding myself. So it was a heavy decision because I'd spent 30 years knowing how to keep it a secret, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're out. You got out of the cannabis closet.
Right. I started doing meetings with politicians that had gotten elected at the end of that election.
Uh-huh.
Because, we had done campaign events all over the state together, and they weren't so scary anymore. Just because they got elected, they were still the guy that I had talked with in Lake Havasu.
Right.
And immediately I saw this lack of information among the political class, not necessarily the marijuana or the political workers, but the elected officials didn't know jack.
So you ran as a Democrat. Were you finding yourself talking to mostly Democrats, or were you talking to all parties?
Mostly Democrats, though in places, so Mojave County, heavy congressional district. I ran a congressional race. And in Mojave County, and especially, there were hardly any Democrats, so every political event was mostly Republicans.
Okay. So it spilled over.
Right. Yeah. Out in like Yavapai County, Pinal County, Gila County, those would be pure Democrat. But, But we don't even have that many Democrats out in Mojave County. So public events, there's a few Democrats that are willing to be out there. I mean, this weekend I was out at the Mojave County Fair at the Democratic booth and was threatened to be shot twice.
Wow.
It was by the same guy.
Okay.
So,
well, at least he's committed.
He's committed, yeah.
Wow. But so what did you report this dude?
Yeah. Well, actually we didn't. He reported us to security because he wanted us thrown out. He had come by the booth and was talking nasty about Democrats, making sure I could hear him. So I said back, making sure he could hear me. Fair is fair.
Yeah.
Oh, you're one of those traitors, huh? What do you mean I'm a traitor? You want to get shot?
Wow.
And he walks off and comes back around. Vote Trump. Hate Democrats. Why? Why would I vote Trump? Because he's good. Trump's a traitor. Oh. So he goes to get security. Said, hey, this guy called the president a traitor. So that's no justification to threaten to shoot us.
Yeah.
Right? Luckily, yeah.
Wow.
I was like, here's the target. Come on, let's get it. But he wouldn't do it.
Wow.
I'm glad. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad.
No, don't want any extra targets.
Right.
That's insane.
But
only
I'm
because
almost to the
you're a Democrat, though.
Right, just because that, yeah.
Wow.
I'm almost to the catching up to modern times, though.
We are close. We're 2011-ish?
We're about 13 now.
Okay.
And that was right when Dave Wisniewski was launching Safe Arizona. He was still in South Korea, so Dennis Bolke was his man on the ground here in the Phoenix metro area. There was an event in Sierra Vista. Dennis went there, I went there, and Robert Clark out of Tucson went there. And that's how we formed the original Safe Arizona. When Dave got out of the military in 2014, he joined us, and we had an election. We had a bill get introduced at the Capitol. We had a ballot measure in 2014 that was unsuccessful. And then it caused me to commit myself to the 2016 election cycle, though.
Right.
And moved to Phoenix almost full time in January 2015 to help negotiate the language of Prop 205. It wasn't satisfactory to the marijuana community as a whole, unfortunately, and I had to sever my relationship with Safe Arizona in June of 2015.
What were some of the key problems with the 205, the first legalization initiative? What were some of the things that people were stepping up and saying, we don't want this for this reason? When everybody, it's supposed to be legal marijuana, we want legal marijuana. We want to be able to walk in and get it wherever we can or have it in our house. What was the problem there?
Well, let's start with the accepting a truism that people often want to brush over. All people don't want the same thing.
Okay.
And there are wide swaths of Arizona community, population that don't want to see legalization. Obviously, the private prison industry doesn't want to see legalization. The task program, the probation officers, people whose livelihood is tied to this system, they don't want to see legalization.
Do you think the medical marijuana dispensaries currently are in that group?
No, I believe the medical marijuana dispensaries in Arizona are very eager for legalization. in 2016, 15 and 16, they did a whole lot of build out for infrastructure for a wider adult use market that
didn't happen.
Right. So they've been itching ever since. You know,
Okay.
I think we could identify, let's say, hundreds of thousands of square feet of unused cultivation.
Sure.
Sitting there waiting, waiting because they thought they would have had it. Yeah,
I got you. So they were sure of it happening in 2016 already, so they built out for it. But the people inside the community were the ones that did not want it to happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I put a lot of this on the campaign chair, J.P. Holyoke. I've said that on record again. There was an attitude that the stoner class didn't matter.
Okay,
which is just so silly because. Numerically, there's 200,000 medical marijuana patients in this state. Almost all of us are adults. Right. There are pediatric patients, but they're a small percentage.
Sure.
200,000 people who could vote one way or another, who are in fact intimately familiar with marijuana. I was talking with the state director of Nevada NORML last night, and she's commenting about the other things that are different between our two states, is how widely informed our marijuana community is. In Nevada, most people aren't paying any attention. Here in Arizona, there's a statewide communication network of people keeping track of what's going on marijuana all the time. There's patient consumption events. There's smoke shops that work together with dispensaries. It's all out there as a network here. So, unfortunately, unfortunately for Prop 205, a significant factor in Arizona's marijuana, let's call it biosphere, is an underground economy.
Okay.
Or somebody said unlicensed distributors.
Huh. And I noticed that we've been coming down on delivery services that were unlicensed lately.
That's true. I just, in my role as the editor of the Arizona Cannabis News, I just posted an article yesterday about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so I didn't even realize that Arizona even had a problem with that, but I guess apparently the Weed Maps was one of the big contributors to the underground market here in Arizona.
Yes, Weed Maps tends to post unlicensed delivery services and caregivers and that sort of thing. Leafly does not. This last year, Representative Diego Espinosa was trying to get a bill to felonize what Weed Maps does by advertising that. We managed to stop that bill.
Right, because it would have affected my business personally.
Right, it would affect. It was trying to swat a gnat with a cannon.
Sure.
But the delivery services have caught the attention of law enforcement, of the government, and Weed Maps is made themselves a target by participating. Leafly demands or requires seeing
state license
before they post your advertisements.
Right. Now I notice they do allow CBD dispensaries on there as well, but so I guess go legal way, go Leafly, go shady, go Weed Maps, but either way you're getting it at your door.
Right. So in 2016 and 2015. Arizona saw the emergence of a organized no vote among the patient and among the underground economy, patient community, underground economy community. And in fact, one of the people that was part of that, Jason Madar, with the AZFMR, which is Arizonans for Mindful Regulation. He had been part of the 2010 Stoners Against Legalization movement in California, which stopped Prop 19. Right. So he used that role to first craft a initiative that was promoted as a challenge to Prop 205, and then when that failed to get its signatures, he helped focus the frustration into a no vote against Prop 205, and it lost. It was successful. It was successful. It lost by 57,000 votes out of 2.5 million cast.
Wow,
that's pretty darn close.
Yeah.
And that made me ever more committed to working on The new initiative, this Smart and Safe Arizona.
What were they pulling out of that original bill to get people to say no?
Well, I want to start by pointing out there's an unusually fierce divide in Arizona between the patient community and the dispensary industry.
Okay.
This comes from the way that the state interfered with the rollout of AMA back in 2011, stalling the opening of dispensaries till like late 2012, 2013, giving the patient community in the metro areas long enough to develop a whole trade network.
Right.
Patients could exchange cannabis between each other. They all had cultivation rights. There got to be farmers markets, an entire culture that I was part of and I enjoy and miss.
Right.
But once the dispensaries were opened, Arizona has what's called the 25-mile rule. You know, in Nevada, they call it a halo, 25-mile halo.
Oh, okay.
Same thing, but the same.
Yeah.
And
But
so,
they established it's a circle, not a line.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so all these patients in the urban areas lost their right to cultivate.
Wow.
And it became a tug of war between dispensaries and this patient community. So that started the friction.
Mm-hmm.
Then in Prop 205, there were some ambiguous language, particularly paraphernalia, that could have decided to rule against the initiative. If
Right.
somebody like this is 2 felony counts because there's the weed inside the air and the bag is a paraphernalia, right?
Right.
So there was that. The biggest problem and that was a legitimate one.
Uh-huh.
The biggest problem was the way that the business structure was framed by the AZFMR community.
Okay.
There's this word that's bandied about, and if anybody knows me, they know that I'm really specific about the language I use. So people were using the word monopoly.
Right.
Monopoly means that one person controls everything.
Sure.
Right. And the Prop 205 business structure did give the existing dispensaries an opportunity to go after these new adult use licenses.
Mm-hmm.
There was going to be 150 licenses as opposed to the 130 that there were for medical.
So they'd only allow 20 new places if I'm hearing you right.
Right. 20 new retail, 150 new retail outlets, but the existing stores could compete for them. But not a limit on the licenses for processors or for cultivators or for testing. So, that we were looking at the California craft cannabis economy,
Right.
cottage industry sort of thing. And this allowed for that. People could get their small cultivation license for like $5,000.
Well,
however, that was framed as not good enough.
okay.
The possession limit, we were pushing for a higher possession limit and got the 1 ounce, which is kind of standard around
Pretty
the
much the
United States.
United States. Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, I didn't know that, though. Because we
Right,
were
because we were one of the first.
Yeah, we were all unfamiliar with what we were trying to do.
Right.
There's that. There was language regarding...
So we wanted more than an ounce, and that was one of the main things we were pushing for. We wanted to have more dispensary licenses.
Yeah, and there was no guaranteed protection for your home cultivation. You could grow 6 plants, but you're only allowed to possess 1 ounce. Now, the way it was worded, it sort of implied that if you kept your weed at home, you could keep it at home, but it didn't say it.
Right,
you know? And so...
So it needed to be more defined.
Right.
So if it was
also
said
it gave
1 ounce,
HOAs control.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of things that weren't consumer friendly.
I gotcha.
And
was it written intentionally like that, or?
No, well, to a degree. There were basically in that year's negotiations, there were a tug of war 3 ways. There was the MPP, the national organization that had been writing these initiatives all over the country, and the author of Prop 203, AMA, Heather Azizi, was going to be the lady writing this one.
Okay.
And it was based on Nevada's legalization initiative, which she had helped write that too.
Okay.
So they were the pros at that sort of thing. The industry in Arizona, the medical marijuana industry that had developed as coming out of AMA back in 2010, had their agenda, which was a business forward agenda, which is me being very diplomatic on saying, yeah, they had a business forward agenda, and were concerned that MPP was not giving them enough control over the market. We're concerned that some of MPP's provisions were too generous to the consumer community and would alienate the general Arizona voter. So those guys were in a tug of war, and then the activist community led by Safer Arizona was doing our bit to hang on and fight for things. There was about a 7-week period that they had cut out home cultivation rights during these negotiations, and it was all that we could come up with to get that back in there.
Yeah.
And at that point, I thought, oh, good, we solved that. We had a list of 12 things we wanted them to update. We got advance in 7 of them, to a degree. Not everything we want. Not everything we want in any of those 7, but something in 7. So I was like, yeah, this is how compromise works.
Yeah,
I'm ready to go forward. But because it had been such a nasty negotiation, and there was already the ill will over the home cultivation 25-mile rule, the AZFMR crowd, and led now by Safe Arizona, my former group, was able to coalesce an angry attack the initiative message that really traveled all over the state. In my role with NORML during that election cycle, I actually did campaign presentations in the 4 corners of the state: Mojave County, Cochise County, Navajo County, Yuma.
Wow. And
in all of those places, I would get AZFMR talking points yelled at me.
Wow. So it just had a community impact. It just spread like wildfire.
They knew exactly.
Okay. So now this initiative comes along. You're part of. Are you writing this one, or are you part of it? What?
Yeah, I had stayed pretty much in Phoenix, trying to keep available over the 2-year period, and kept popping up like the puppy dog at the table. Don't forget me! Don't forget me! Keep me in there, right? And really, campaigns are an issue of people with power and people with money. There's a third thing that you can have, which is a voice.
Right.
But the people with power and the people with money often leave out the folks with a voice. So I was doing my best to keep in the discussion, keep NORML relevant. We worked super seriously at the state legislature the last several years, passed a bill that the governor vetoed in 17, passed one in 18, passed 3 this year. And so, demonstrating proficiency that I had the political savvy to be part of a campaign. And by May, got hired as part of this campaign. And it was important to be on staff to have my voice matter.
Right.
And I, as soon as I announced it to the public, I started getting, hey, he's just a sellout. But, until you sign the NDA, they don't let you see the thing.
Right.
Until you agree to work with the team, you don't have a chance to express yourself and have, meetings that matter. And if they had brought up stuff that I couldn't, abide, like, yeah, you can have home cultivation, but we get your left kidney, that kind of crap, I could have walked away, But instead, I used my voice, my 2 cents, and negotiated improvements over the Prop 205 into this Smart and Safe Arizona initiative.
Right.
In specific language regarding the protection of the harvest, language regarding parenting rights and professional licensing rights.
Nice.
My friend Jack Wilburn with LEAP, that's Law Enforcement Action Partnership, he helped with the language on DUI. there's 5 that really stood out, but the protection of the harvest and protection of your children were the things that mattered the most to me.
Right.
Oh, did I mention paraphernalia?
No.
We clarified the paraphernalia thing.
So is this paraphernalia?
Yeah, but it's legal. If marijuana is legal,
right,
the stuff that you use to deal with it is legal too, right?
Okay.
Of course, yeah. That was I've been going to smoke shops ever since, saying, "Look, we fixed it."
Nice,
right?
nice.
Yeah.
So are you're seeing a bigger community getting on board this time, or?
Well, it's definitely I would say it's a split community. I was trying to get the right handle on that, but it's a split community. We have the people from the AZFMR back in the day. They're now launching their own CBD line of products and understand the business model.
Right. They're trying to make their money now.
Now they're trying to make their money.
Not against the corporations anymore. They are a corporation.
They are a corporation. Yeah. And I keep looking for ways to deal with this. I'm getting pushback with people using that word monopoly again.
Right.
Okay. And
it's just, being somebody who had nothing, you look at somebody who's doing well and you're not doing well, and you wonder why the fuck not? Why not me? When's gonna be my time?
Right.
And you feel that hate and you don't know why. It's definitely an America thing, because we have this sense of they got it next door, they got it this way, and I want it too, and I don't have it. So fuck you for having it.
Well, this is an entrepreneurial country, of course. I'm an artist, which means I'm a capitalist, because artists believe in individual reward for individual accomplishment.
Yep.
Right. And I empathize with the people who want to advance. I was a homeless vet living between 2 buildings and had my homeless kit burglarized.
Jesus
I started out there, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not there now.
Right.
Because of tremendous good fortune, probably white privilege. Okay. I'm a white man in America, so white privilege, and a lot of pluck and effort on my part. Those are probably the key things.
Yeah.
If a person wanted to start a new business as, say, a lawnmower repairman, they could probably do it out of their garage with the tools that they already had. But if they wanted to open as little as a dry cleaner or a restaurant, well, boom, now we're talking $100,000 plus.
Right.
Is that unfair? Are you priced out of the system? Well, yeah, if you don't figure out how to solve it, you will be priced out of the system. So that was a key thing for me in coming to accept, that we were going to battle with people over the business structure again this time. And that seems to be the heart of the pushback that I'm facing, is people battling over the business structure.
All right. Well, what are some of the key points of the business structure of the whole plan? What are we looking at here?
So what we're looking at is, right now there's about 130 licenses that are issued for medical marijuana dispensaries in the state. Say 109 of them are actually operating.
Okay.
Each one of those licenses is a vertical license, which means that you have license for 3 different operations: the retail, the production, and the cultivation. Mm-hmm. You can take on business partners who become the subcontractors or full business partners to run any of those 3 parts. So those 130, which are actually, let's call them 110 licenses that are operating right now, are actually like 330 business opportunities.
Okay.
But those, this market's kind of mature. Those are all locked up by and large.
Sure.
So, the last couple of years I've been, I get approached by people wanting business advice, and I say, well, until we have legalization, there's not a lot of new business opportunity. Right. So this operates, it has 130 licenses, or 130 new licenses for each of those areas. That's a adult use license.
So that will go to those dispensaries automatically?
No, it goes to those different areas.
Okay. Now so there's already a medical marijuana dispensary, so I can put a retail right next to it, is what you're saying?
Well, you can put it in that same geographic area. Obviously, the people who already have their medical, they're probably going to apply.
Right.
And they can use the same building to sell rec or medical, either way. There'd be a different cash register, maybe just a different software. Hit this button for patient, hit that button for adult use.
Okay.
Okay. But if a second person applies for that license, then it's a lottery. You know, a second legitimate applicant applies for those licenses, then they change the formula. Currently, the formula was 10 or one dispensary for every 10 pharmacies.
Okay.
They're talking about going over to a population because as pharmacies are consolidating, there's actually becoming fewer pharmacies,
right.
even though we're having more people.
Right.
So that formula is no longer working.
Yeah.
So they're looking at expanding the number of licenses up to like the 150, and then there's another 10 that would be set aside for minority entrepreneurs.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. So each one of those licenses is once again a vertical license. So 3 business opportunities: the retail, the processing, and the cultivation. Here in Arizona, there's a very vibrant wholesale market as you know, dispensaries sell their products amongst each other. You can go to a dispensary and find products from 30 different other dispensaries,
sure.
right? So that's the business opportunity lens of looking at this. The law and order lens of looking at that approach is we marijuana smokers represent about 1/7 of the population. We may live in a bubble where it's
everybody, yeah,
it's everybody we know,
yeah.
But the majority of people are not marijuana smokers, and more than half of them voted against it just 3 years ago.
Right.
So,
how do you get to them?
Yeah. So they don't want to see dispensaries on every corner.
Right.
They even though, you know, if you've been to like say Trinidad, Colorado, which is a tourist donation, yeah, it's definitely a weedy place.
Right.
But if you go to Denver, Colorado,
right,
there's stuff there, but it's not, you know, it's not the stamp. It's not everything. It's still society. So to prevent that kind of anxiety, they don't want to have a lot of new licenses, at least in the original rollout. They also want to have people who know what they're doing. It is entirely true that if anybody looks at the business history of Arizona's medical marijuana industry this last 5 years, you'd find way more failures and stupid moves than successes.
Mm-hmm.
So this make sure that we start out with people who know what they're doing.
Well, I like to stop right there and say, Herbal Risings has been dedicated since the beginning to getting people knowing what they're doing. If you look at our graduates and the success rate and the failure rate to them, you'll see a lot more successful people in our dispensaries.
I will say, as I go through the marijuana industry, I find Herbal Risings graduates in dispensaries, not just at the front desk and the bud tender, but in middle management and upper management. Yeah,
we're definitely seeing it, and they're very entrepreneurial. You know, these are people who invested in themselves, invested in their career, and they're creating the brands now. They're creating, you know, the market that's as it's evolving. So it's really good to be a part of that. You know, it's really awesome.
There's another thing I want to talk about. Key component in any 21st century, let's say 2020 initiative around America, is some restorative justice over this 80-year outrageous prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
According to NORML's estimates, we've now passed 26 million Americans have been arrested for marijuana.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And whole communities have been, over-policed. There's a famous shooting victim from Minnesota last year. Not last year, but here recently, Philando Castile. There was a lot of talk about the fact he's another black man shot by police, and that is irrefutable.
Right.
But what actually triggered the cops to come after him
was marijuana.
He was smoking a joint
Yep.
in a car, and they rolled up on him, and it went south from there.
Yeah.
So that's how bad things can be with marijuana oppression, especially if you're a member of community of color. So this initiative has a restorative justice section in it that reinvest in communities that have been over-policed.
Yep.
It has what will be Arizona's first expungement procedure explained. See, Arizona doesn't have a centralized database of felony convictions. They do them at I wasn't expecting this. I learned this last week. They have the records at the city and the county, and so we can't have an automatic expungement because there's no.
They don't know who it is. Yeah.
Central database, right? But so this is the first effort to try to get that resolved, so Arizona can be like other states where.
Can we get a spreadsheet? Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, actually, we're hoping not to end up with a spreadsheet because I don't really want a registered felon, felon registry, just like I don't want a gun registry, right? You know, especially if somebody has gone through the criminal justice system, leave them the fuck alone.
Right.
That's an awful thing to do with a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. No, that's I definitely feel you, man. That's one of the biggest things is people who get locked up for life for cannabis. You know, people losing their lives for this, and obviously NORML and this legalization is doing a lot to stop that. But man, it's happened to so many people, like you talked about, that they're already there.
Right.
They're watching this happen from fucking prison.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is an expungement is not the same as
expulsion.
As releasing prisoners.
Yeah.
And back to that we're 1/7 of the population. Among the marijuana community, this is justice is, up there on scale with women's suffrage and LGBT oppression.
Sure.
It's pretty darn big, but to the rest of the public, expungement is actually a no-vote thing.
Yeah, I see that. They don't want criminals on the streets.
Right.
Is their view.
Yeah, as we live in a punishful society like from the beginning.
Yeah.
And these days, so many people feel threatened and anxious that that's their resort is to go to punishfulness. So
wow.
This initiative does have something that's unusual in an initiative. It carves out a set of changes that can be made without requiring Prop 105 protection. And let me explain for our viewers. Back home, in 1996, Arizona passed an initiative called Prop 200, which would have created a medical marijuana program, among a lot of other great things. And that's in November, and so in January of 97, the state legislature just shut that down. They said citizens didn't know what they were talking about. They got rid of it.
So they voted for cannabis, and they said, "Nah, fuck you can't have that."
Exactly. Which we all see the injustice in that.
Sure.
So in 1998, the following year, the citizens of Arizona passed an initiative called Prop 105. And Prop 105 said that the state legislature couldn't mess with a citizen's initiative unless A, it furthered the initiative's intention, and B, they had 3/4 of a vote.
So now the citizens are protected for what they vote for.
Right. So this initiative goes to an unusual step right at the end and says that this list of things would not require that high stringent of if you wanted to do this, Arizona legislature, you could add these provisions after it becomes a law without having to meet the 3/4 threshold. And that includes reducing penalties for punishment, increasing the number of business opportunities, increasing the number of possession amounts, and targeting funding to create a statewide expungement program. Because some people want a registry. I'm not one of them, but there's no money in the current set for it. So this allows, if the state legislature wants to go that way, they can fund a statewide expungement.
So this will fund what we're talking about to find the people who have been arrested or whatever.
Right.
Have this on their record.
Yeah.
Basically.
There's already funding to process expungements, but the way it's written currently, it'd be up to the individual to request an expungement,
right?
Because there's no central database.
if you have if you have a marijuana arrest on your record, when you get pulled over, like that pulls up on the cops, and now you're automatically a felony stop.
Right.
You're stepping out of the car, your hands are up, they're going through your shit.
Yes.
And that's what you're trying to do, is prevent that from happening every time you get pulled over.
It seals the record for it can't be compounded to give you an enhanced felony. It can't be used as probable cause. Oh, speaking of, you know what else can't be used as probable cause? The odor of marijuana, burnt or fresh.
Wow. So if they smell weed, they can't search a vehicle for that.
Right.
So if a dog alerts to it, that doesn't matter anymore either, because
it's legal. Dogs, imagine what it would be like for a dog that was trained to smell marijuana. It'd just be walking by in bliss all day long.
I love my job. Yeah.
Right.
Right on. So expungement is a big part of this, and we can actually fund it through the legalization effort if the legislator chooses to put that forward, push it forward.
There's another thing that, so in the way that the Prop 203, the medical program, AMA, was written, there was more funding collected than there were legitimate ways to spend it. So we have this medical marijuana fund that's now up to $80 million. There's been
and nothing to do with it?
Nothing to do with it.
Wow.
Because the way it was written, there was a limitation of what it could be used for. And the state legislature has tried several times since it passed to, let's say, raid that fund or get into it as a way to fund some big dollar project, something that's worth $10-20 million. But they haven't succeeded. There's been...
So what can the funds be used for?
Well, they can be used to operate the program.
Okay. So that's it, huh?
That's it.
Why don't we have more regulatory testing, more people in these dispensaries with that fundage? Why don't...
Well, we did this last year at the state legislature pass an omnibus reform bill on the medical marijuana program called SB 1494.
Okay.
And it creates a testing program. So by this time next year, there'll be a testing program in place.
So what does the testing program test for?
It tests for potency to make sure that the labeling is honest.
Okay.
It tests for contaminants like residual solvents, pesticides, heavy metals, especially heavy metals are being associated with vape pens these days, microbial contaminants. Those are the things that will be required to be tested for.
Will dispensaries be required to post these results?
They will be required to post the results of the potency, and there'll be a central database that you can access to see the results of the tests.
Can they still put the moldy weed out?
They cannot. And stuff that doesn't pass the test won't be in the database because it didn't pass the test.
Okay.
However, with the advent of modern technology, technology, they now have flash chromatography where they can get the THC out of a plant or just get the CBD. And with those kinds of remediations, you might be able to salvage even a bad crop.
Right.
But
that's kind of what I'm doing with this here. This is all my vaporized cannabis from since April.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, I have a hard time throwing it away. I have thrown away a few bowls, but this is all the vaped weed I have here, and I know there's got to be some THC left in there.
Have you tried rolling it and smoking it?
I gave a bunch to Wisniewski once, and I think he ate it. But when I was in California, I did not have money for cannabis. I did not have weed, but I did have friends at the dispensary. And they had a volcano vaporizer like this one here. And they would, the patients, what they would do is they would empty the vape weed out of the thing here and keep it in the little eighth containers. Yeah. So the dispenser at the end of the day would save that for me and give that to me just as a good gesture. To have something. I would go in there and I'd spend like $10 or $20 on a gram, but obviously that's not gonna last me very long.
Right.
So they would give me all the the vape cannabis, and man, there was like so much green in those because they would hit it a couple times, get medicated and leave.
Right.
So they dump it out and leave, and there's a lot of green in those, but a lot of it was pretty used, especially when I would sit back there and vape my gram or whatever. I would vape the hell out of it. I'd make sure it was almost black by the time I was done with it. But the idea is not to go purely dark. But what I would do when it would get to this color, so basically, this looks like tobacco. The color of tobacco. And what I would do is I would go get a box of those cigarette tubes and a tube filler machine. And I would dump this into the tube filler and fill those cigarette tubes with that. And then I would go to the sets where like my job was like background acting and like going to like TV shows and like laughing and clapping in the audience. You get paid like $10 an hour. Actually, I think it was like $8 an hour back then. But to clap and laugh.
Go telethon.
Yeah. Do all that stuff. And then it was like cash daily. So everybody had cash at the end of the day. So I'd be there smoking my weed cigarettes and everybody would want them. So I'd sell like these vaporized weed cigarettes for like $5 a piece at the end of the day. Or no, I sell them 5 for $5 at the end of the day. And, and people were just eating them up. And so
I mentioned being a teen runaway. In 79. I was hitchhiking through New York City, and we were selling joints that we like. They had retail stores, so they weren't licensed, and you got $8 worth of weed, and the guy broke up 2 cigarettes and double papered everything, and we got 22 joints out of them.
Wow!
And we were selling them for $1 a piece.
Wow! So you took $8 and $22.
Yeah,
that's the cannabis way,
right? Yeah. But you see, that's also the cannabis way, is that your price didn't go up. Like in the whole like evolution of time, your joint for $1, 5 for $5. Yeah.
So
hats off to affordable marijuana.
Yeah. But I guess it's the same. Mine was a little bit less potent, so I figured it wasn't worth the shit. But they were smoking it. It tasted like weed because it was still decent. But the best thing about it would be like going, like all the actors will always smoke cigarettes in between takes.
Yeah.
So I need to stay medicated. So I just take those cigarettes and I would just sit there and smoke with the actors. Like security be walking by and be like, these guys in the trailer are smoking weed again. Right. I'd be doing it right in front of their face. Nobody had a clue. The vaporized weed is the color of tobacco. So if you ever use that trick, it lasts longer, but I don't know what to do with it. My plan is to distill it. I'm going to try to see what I can get out of it.
Well, if you find you have too much, you can always give me some.
Well, that's what I figured. I got some other gifts for you today, though.
Yay! Farting gifts.
I don't want to give you the vaporized the weed, but
I like being on a show where they have friendly parting gifts.
Yeah. No, we do have gifts for our guests today on the show. There is going to be some cannabis gifts involved today, but we'll keep those off air.
So, out of curiosity, can we check with the technician, April? How many people are watching our show now?
Let's see what we got.
7 at the moment.
7 at the moment. How many views have we had? Does it say?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay. Welcome 7 viewers. At least it's nobody in this room watching, so we at least have 7 out there doing it. So welcome, guys. I hope you can hear us. I hope the sound is good.
Yeah,
it should be good. We had some technical difficulties when we first started this broadcast. I've been learning our mixer there, but I think it's broadcasting at a good rate because I did hear it over your phone earlier. So
we knew that it was playing then.
Yeah.
So I'm now in transition from being full-time editor for Arizona Cannabis News to being full-time staff on the legalization campaign. We are refiling shortly after making some changes, adding some of those licenses that I was just talking about, and expecting to start collecting signatures here shortly. There's obviously the backbone of this campaign signature is going to be paid gatherers.
Right.
Yeah, 237,000, and now there's like 10 months to do it.
So where's the funding coming from for this campaign?
The Arizona Dispensary Association is leading the funding on that, and their biggest members are, of course, the bigger companies.
Right.
Yeah. I was at their rollout event last Thursday night, and I would say there were 20 plus dispensaries represented at that event.
Nice.
Yeah, and this is worth noting, and I really want to get this across. So, as I've moaned and groaned to anybody that would let me, I've hung out in Phoenix the last couple of years trying to get a good legalization package together. And during that time, I talked to industry leaders who knew that they were going to be involved. They had no doubt that they were going to be involved.
Okay.
We talked about that build out that never was able to be used, right? So there was plenty of people in the industry that had a vested interest in this going forward.
Are you seeing the smaller dispensaries, the individual ones, or are you seeing like the MedMen and the Curaleafs and those coming in?
The bigger ones.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the point that I'm making here. So I went to the dispensaries and said, well, we need to have some kind of a revolutionary new business structure that isn't the one that's here.
Right.
And they're like, we're the guys that are here. What are you talking about? Why would we want that? And I tell you what, you want a different kind of business structure, help with the funding.
Yeah.
I'm a 2 cent guy. I have my 2 cents to put in. I don't have millions of dollars. So I beat the bushes for years, literally, to find people who would take a strong role in this. I actually had a guy come from the Nevada marijuana industry. He was like, oh, we must uphold this American dream idea. And he came and he met with ADA leadership, some of them, and he wasn't impressed. It wasn't the kind of opportunity. It wasn't worth paying for,
right?
In his book.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, the only people that were willing to pay for an initiative is the existing industry, and of course, they're putting up. We're expecting like a $10 million campaign. So if you're paying $10 million, you do get to decide a lot of stuff.
Right. But
they were aware of the problems that we had in 2015 and 16 with the industry being so cavalier about the concerns of the public, that they went just through some extraordinary steps, to me, to try to correct that. Like, they brought me on board, and then I went out and I found community leaders to come and talk to them.
Okay.
And they went to DPA, Drug Policy Alliance. They went to NORML National, and all these different organizations. The initiative was actually written by a member of the board, the state board of the ACLU here in Arizona.
Well,
so in the process, they met with 192 different individuals to draft this.
Yeah.
So there was a real effort.
A lot of input being put into this draft.
Right. And most of those 192 people were like me. We're bringing in our 2 cents. I mean, even the ACLU, they're not
contributing money. They're contributing ideas.
Right. So that's how this thing got written. It was funding. You have to have funding to do this. And like I probably mentioned earlier, here in Arizona's convenience store market.
Yeah.
Damn, Circle K and 7-Eleven, QT, they're all over the place.
Right.
But they're not a monopoly.
Right.
Yeah. And
there's no one guy behind it all. Yeah.
And I don't think it would be right to say, I want to be able to open a mom and pop convenience store, so you got to shut down Circle K.
Right. Now, is Starbucks a monopoly?
No, because there's the human being, and there's.
I was just kidding.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah. Ever since that Howard Schultz decided that he was going to run for president, I said I was going to stop shopping in Starbucks. And damn, if like time after time,
you find yourself,
hey, we got to meet at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a human being.
No. Right. So yeah, that's the main things that I would talk about the initiative. I don't want the show to go on so long that it becomes redundant, but this is one of the 3 areas of law that Arizona NORML is working on right now.
Okay.
We also have progress on a couple of different city councils and making cannabis enforcement lowest police priority. We're working on our next year's legislative agenda. with our that omnibus bill I referred to earlier, SB 1494.
Right.
3 of our major long-time efforts were solved. So it cleared out that agenda. So I was able to start something. In particular, I'm looking at parent rights.
Okay. Yeah, that's obviously a very big thing. I mean, not just having the kids at home with the cannabis, but pregnant mothers stopping cannabis or continuing to use cannabis. What the medical choice there. A lot of doctors are telling them to continue to use cannabis, and then CPS comes in and takes that kid.
One of the most powerful cases, and we dramatize this on our state NORML website, is a woman named Darlene Padilla, who has spina bifida, pretty much confined to a wheelchair, had spent the majority of her life in pain and thus on narcotics.
She was one of our students.
Yes.
That's where you met her at the class.
Right.
I remember this lady, yes.
And when she married and decided that she wanted to have children, she was worried because she'd spent years on narcotics.
Yes.
And her doctor told her to get off of the narcotics using medical marijuana. She now has a couple of kids, and they're in fine shape.
Yes,
Yes. So to me, it needs to be, the human body is an individualized situation. We need to have more rules that reflect a person instead of just some abstract idea.
Yes. Individual case-by-case basis, definitely. Now, with the child protective services and the smell of weed and things like that, I know we've had our run-ins with people reporting the smell of cannabis and the kids, and having to deal with that ourselves, let alone once again, white privilege. I definitely feel that was an opportunity for us there, because I feel like if that would have been any other situation, it would not have been the same outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that the smell of cannabis being a reason not to search people, but still definitely not a reason for CPS not to come into your house and talk to your kids.
Right. That in specific, the language of the initiative says that no right or privilege can be limited or abrogated because of marijuana. So that's said, it's your parenting rights. It's also your professional rights. Like me as a school teacher, when I came out as a medical marijuana patient, even though it was medical marijuana and I definitely qualify,
right?
My career was in jeopardy. People could have fired me and ruined my life, my license forever if it had gone that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And because of the stigma with medical marijuana or cannabis in general, I know a lot of teachers do keep it on the DL and try to cope and self-medicate with medical marijuana as opposed to pills and other things like that. Do you find that there was a community of teachers also using cannabis but not being outspoken about it?
Yes, oddly enough, from different parts of the state. So they didn't know. Only of our board, we have 3 retired teachers who were all DL.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, working in the dispensaries, we see teachers come in. I definitely know of teachers that smoke cannabis on a regular basis that are medical marijuana patients.
Right.
But definitely wouldn't tell their students or their school board or whatever else because of that fear.
Right. Oh yeah. And as a teacher, when I was a teacher, I would get asked by my students about this topic, and I'd say, why would I ever want to identify this and either give you good advice or bad advice?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
You're going to have to solve this on your own. Don't look to me.
Did you end up busting kids with cannabis?
No. However, there was I taught in Bullhead City, which when I was hired was a ganged up school, and we had to clean that out. Several years later,
is it inter-country school basically?
I was hired porque yo hablo poquito español, and the student population was like 60% Hispanic at that point.
Yeah.
And there was this one kid that, really big kid, thought he was going to be physically threatening with me. And I reported him for being physically threatening with me.
Oh, wow.
and they didn't deal with the whole discipline.
So you're still in the classroom with this kid who's threatened you?
No, it had been out in the hall. They didn't deal with the whole discipline at that point.
Okay.
It was the end of the day. Come back tomorrow, and we're going to discuss what we do with you, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm just going on teaching my regular class, and when he comes back the next day, he had weed in his pocket, and he was a dick, so they decided to press charges against him.
Well, he knows he's gonna be talking about this thing, so
that's
on this kid. I'm gonna say
right, though you could tell by the way I answered.
He was a dick.
But he was a dick, but I still, he's the one. I know that it happened.
Yeah.
I know that happened with that kid, and it wasn't my intention to ever bust anybody for weed.
Right. But he knew he was gonna be in trouble that day, and he still brought it. So he was looking for extra charges. It sounds like to me.
Well, he definitely got him.
Yeah. Well, but not intentionally busted anybody.
Yeah. I, in fact, was there at one of his hearings, and I was like, I surely didn't want to destroy this kid's life, but he shouldn't have been threatening me, and I had no idea, about the marijuana.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate, and that's the thing, with if it would have been legal, it might have just been a slap on the wrist. It might have not been an extra charge. He might have just went home on suspension. But here we are in this marijuana's the devil society, and now it ruined his whole career. His school career.
Yeah, my advocacy buddy, Jack Wilburn, who I've referenced to earlier, his first day as a cop, riding along with a veteran cop, they pulled over a kid who had just graduated out of high school, found a roach. Jack wanted to, we'll just throw it away and go on.
Yeah.
But the lead cop made sure that they arrested him.
I'm sorry.
And over the next, Jack, paid attention to the trial, and then the kid's life afterwards. Kid had been on his way to a full ride scholarship in college. All that.
So this veteran cop literally fucked this kid.
Right, and Jack said his kid's just had a downhill trajectory.
Wow.
And that's Jack's my age, so we're talking
at least the 80s.
At least 30, 40 years ago, and it haunts him to this day.
Wow.
And that's part of the reason that he got started in cannabis reform, and probably part of the reason that a lot of the officers in LEAP do is they saw this injustice.
See, I call LEAP so many different things. I thought for the longest time it was law enforcement against prohibition.
It was for a very long time.
Okay, so I was right. Okay, all right.
The problem is that conservative people didn't like the sound of that.
Okay.
So, no, we're the action partnership.
I got you.
We take action.
All right.
Yeah. And he's definitely worked like a partner with me. We're 3 years at the Capitol. He's a Republican, and I'm not. And it really works across. He's a former cop, and I'm not.
Yeah, obviously.
So
he can talk to the more straight-laced people, and you can go talk to the less laced, the more laced.
Yeah, the more laced, right.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, that's cool. That's good that the community is bringing that together, even though it might be a small 7% or whatever of the community is, but, the reach is so much larger than that.
Yeah, I have a lot of faith in this campaign compared to the last campaign. I mean, part of the decision-making in that previous campaign is they hired a Republican political lobbying firm who, by and large, were not cannabis consumers.
Right.
The actual person who was the speaker for the campaign, Barrett Marson, his wife hates marijuana. Huh. So how good of a job was he going to do?
Yeah. That's kind of a biased. How'd you get picked for the job? Let me ask you that.
Yeah. So from the beginning, I was like, here's my little 2 cents.
Yeah.
Purple lobbying firm at least.
Yeah.
Because this is both sides, and in Arizona, they didn't win their conservative target audience, and they didn't even reach out to the liberal audience. So of course they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So with the new initiative, what stands out to you as being one of the biggest issues that people might find?
Well, we talked about the business structure is the most sincere issue. And I helped negotiate it. So things that had been concerns for me at first, a lot of them have evolved. In particular, the business structure, especially when you think about all those different business opportunities I laid out. It's clearly not a monopoly. I had, I only thing that I didn't get that I was really hoping for is a definition of a plant.
Yeah, because we got clones, we got seeds, we got some mature plants would probably be a good one. Harvested plants would probably be the ultimate.
Right.
If you had six dried harvested plants and no more, then that would be the ultimate. Because you can grow as many as you want, but they're going to fail, just like any
right.
grower. Not all your tomatoes are going to turn out in your garden.
Oh yeah. Well, right now we're in June. Arizona rolled out its hemp program for the first time, and people are seeing 70 to 90% failure rate.
Exactly, and it's going to be when you start getting the individual home cultivation, it's going to be higher than that. The people who don't know what they're doing, just buying the stuff at the hydro store or online, putting a seed in the ground. It's going to take a lot of trial and error. And if you're only starting with 6 and you only end up with 6, you're never going to really get a harvestable amount as the patient.
Right.
You have to start with a lot and dwell it down to 6.
Yeah. To me, clones are one thing. A plant has a few key things. It has to be alive.
Sure.
It has to be have a root structure.
Okay.
And in a grow material.
So, but a clone is all that.
Not necessarily.
It's in a grow material and it's in a little pod. It's got roots and it's alive. And I can only have 6 of those, and they have to go from that stage all the way to full mature. That's an issue for me as a grower. Even as a closet grower, I'm never going to get enough medicine for me at the end of the day to be able to vaporize my cannabis that I would use.
Yeah.
I have to have 6 harvested plants at the end of the day, at the end of the harvest, to make it worth my time. Because those other 6, I'm not gonna be able to do it. So that would be my language that I would want in there. That would be my only thing. But what do you see that's good in this initiative? What's some of the positive?
Because of our work with NORML, the patient-parent issue has been a really central heartbreak for me.
Right.
So seeing this solved for consumers in general about marijuana and parent rights. No, if a parent's a bad parent, it's not the weed, it's these other behaviors that we already have clearly roots to address. So that is the most important. And then the thing that I take a great joy in is solving the harvest problem. It says that on page 4 that the marijuana produced by plants on the premises can stay there.
Okay. So whatever you grow in your house, you can keep in your house.
Right.
But once again, my bottom line is I'm never be able to grow enough if I can only have 6 rooted plants in grow material.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things that no vote patients tell me is they didn't want to grow marijuana anyway.
Sure.
Because right now we don't have any plants.
Right.
Yeah. So 6 plants is way more than not any.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, I grow 6 ruderalis plants, grow them really big, bushy, and then have a continuous harvest of buds that nobody else can grow off their 6 plants.
That sounds like a great thing, and I'm happy to hear such innovation.
If my law was to be passed where it's 6 harvested plants, you wouldn't be able to have those types of plants.
Yeah, and actually, you give me an opportunity to get to. I'm trying to think of an adjective, but one of the things that comes up with initiatives. So I've been involved in initiatives in 14, 16, 18, and now this one. And there's a lot of ideas that are possible,
right?
But being able to accomplish them, far more than my little 10 theater act as a congressional candidate. I was able to put together a low stakes campaign and got my ass kicked by 40%. So every day 44 Arizonans are getting arrested for cannabis possession.
Right.
It's about one every half hour. And that is super compelling to me.
So that's why we vote yes. Don't worry about the reasons to vote no.
Right.
Worry about the reasons to vote yes.
Yes. Something that Southern Arizona NORML chapter shared with me. They had heard me say something in the past, and it came back to me as, we're not here to reform capitalism. We're here to reform marijuana laws.
Right. And that's the bottom line. Is
right, yeah.
Whatever your personal issue is with it, push past it and look at the people who are being arrested, who are having their children taken away, who are having their lives ruined, and just vote yes for those people, and then worry about your own individual problems as they come up.
Right. And to the point that I made earlier about not everybody wants the same things. So I made this similar point, perhaps not well, I don't know, but to a presentation last week, and this young woman who definitely isn't deprived of anything says, well, my grandmother's been arrested in the past, and she can be arrested again. I don't care. I'm not voting yes.
Wow.
Wow, I'm glad I don't date you. Shit.
Yeah. But I've also
you
heard...
are a poor companion.
I've also heard grandmas say that about their grandkids too.
Well, yeah.
They keep on getting arrested, screw them. But if grandma's a fuck up, the grandma's a fuck up too.
And, well, that's true. One of the things that I've told people is, like, so if I'm, like, flaunting the law left, right, and the other way, what if my neighbors turn me in?
Yeah.
And I say, well, you know, this odor of marijuana is no longer probable cause. But if you're an asshole, they might.
Yeah. Yeah. Then give them a reason. Yeah. No, that's the whole thing is, you know, we got to be a human being. We all have to live on this planet together. And, you know, the golden rule still applies. You know, how do you want to be treated? And that's what it comes down to is, you know, do you want this to happen to you? And if that's the case, then you're an asshole too. And
yeah, I can only help you so far.
Yeah.
And there's always, okay, I hate the word always, that hyperbolic language, but
most of the time
there will be people who are willing to flaunt the law. I mean, there's whole networks of us right now.
We all go smoke a joint on the Capitol lawn. Yeah.
Right. And in the future, there'll probably still be people that will flaunt the law. Like, one of the things that I notice at these pop-up events, I don't know if you've ever attended one.
No, I would like to talk about those because I've driven by them. I thought about attending them and saw the line and just thought, is free weed worth it? And then I thought, am I getting free weed? Am I getting this on my AIM? Am I getting this on my card? I've already got my 2.5 ounces this week.
You got to wonder, huh? Yeah. So anyway, you go to some of these events and next thing you know, people have their gallon jars out on the table with $10 a gram or whatever a gram. There's not going to be a business model that works with that.
Right.
So if you're okay with breaking the law now.
So those events are breaking the law. That's the bottom line. But we're not using that $80 million to stop this or regulate this. We're just watching this.
Yeah, because the $80 million that's in the medical marijuana fund is not for law enforcement to pick on patients, even stupid patients that are doing unlicensed sales.
Wow. So, interesting.
Which is a good thing.
But could we go on there as a regulatory say, and at least put up a stand and say, hey, you're over your limit this 2 weeks? And
I think that I don't think I want to go to an event if the regulatory agency's showing up.
I would rather be at that event because I don't want to deal with all the idiots that are over the limit. Is my thing. We have the limit in Arizona. It's 2.5 ounces. There's a reason for that, right?
Yeah. Well, and that was part of the people who were participating in the farmers markets should not be deluding themselves or others that they were doing a sanctioned and approved thing.
Yeah.
You were allowed to have 2.5 ounces, and you could give your friend all your marijuana if you wanted, all 2.5 ounces. So how come you have 5-gallon jars on the counter and he's leaving with a pound?
Right.
What the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, not saying, NORML looks out for all marijuana consumers.
Sure.
I don't want to see, increase arrests of anybody.
Right.
But if you're not going to be at least resembling follow the rules, it's a lot harder for me to help you to develop a defense.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing is this amount of cannabis is not ending up in the patient's hands. Obviously, my wife and I are both licensed card holders, and we hear it every time we go to the dispensary. Oh, you both have your card. That's so rare. Usually, it's one has the card.
Yes.
And they're sharing, and that's the whole thing is you're breaking the law, and you could lose your card. You both could. There's a whole list of things that come along with that.
Right.
And I don't like the industry encouraging that. Is my thing. I really want to look for the patients to be smart about it, but I don't know. I'm conflicted with that.
A lot of us don't really observe our own behavior and what the morality may or may not be. I spent a year working in the industry in different jobs, and one of the management owners, somebody who owned a management company that managed dispensary, said, on any given day, in any dispensary, there's 100 violations.
Right.
Little tiny stupid things that people didn't even realize they did. And when she said that, I was like, oh, here's my walk as a patient. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm all over the line,
Yeah.
We don't even realize that, which, that's part of the reason that you need to have full legalization or legalization, because then it changes the culture and those things aren't evil or bad or,
right.
A way to invite destruction. Nobody wants to make mistakes, but boy, all the tiny mistakes we make in a day, I hate to be held to account.
Right. That's my thing is, we have these there, and if somebody's watching them, they can use them.
Right.
And that's my thing is I don't want to be around that situation.
Right. Well, I was going to, a lot of pop-up events here since I basically lived in Phoenix since January.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to pop-up events, and I like the crowd okay, but it's always the same crowd.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so if I go to one every month, then I'm keeping up.
I definitely see there's a cannabis echo upon those attendees. You see the same ones at the different events, and there's definitely a Facebook echo of the same people. I've with our classes, we try to pull people that are looking to get in the cannabis industry, and they're their first time into it, and they end up going into those events. Now you see them in the echo, but we're trying to get outside of that, especially with the legalization. Going to these cannabis events, you're preaching to the choir every time.
Right.
Where are you finding the new ears?
Exactly. Well, my role in the campaign, my role in NORML, is to look for the people who said no.
Right.
In 2016, there were 1.3 million Arizonans that voted no.
Wow.
So they're my target audience.
Okay.
Right. They sure are. I'm working. Part of my transition of leaving full-time as the editor of the Arizona Cannabis News, the best news job I've ever had.
But you have to step away. You can't do both.
No. Well, if
I
could get 48 hours in a day, maybe.
Yeah.
But
This
campaign.
campaign.
It's a campaign. I've been writing and publishing since I was 30. I'm 60 now, and I'll be writing in 2021.
Sure.
Some more.
Yeah.
But this is the time to do.
This is the focus.
Yeah. And it's could you really do a job this important with 7 million people's lives on the line part-time? No.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but part of the reason that I'm working on making that transition is to get out to the rural places and develop the rural community. I live 7 miles from Kingman, which is, BFE already.
Yeah.
7 miles past that. 5 houses past pavement, right? So
yeah, you're almost Nevada.
Yeah, I empathize with what it means to be outside the kingdom of Maricopa, and we did some analysis of the vote in 2016, And there were a lot of rural places that were like 10 points plus saying no.
Wow.
Because nobody ever talked to them.
And they get out and vote because they have nothing else to do.
Right.
There's not a line at their poll. There's 12 people in the town.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, because of the effectiveness of the reefer madness, some basic things that we understand are foreign language. I was just at the U.S. Capitol with representatives, and some of the basic stuff that we know, their staffers who are supposed to be working on marijuana had no idea about.
Wow.
Like endocannabinoid receptor system. Huh? U.S. patent on marijuana as a neuroprotectant? No, really? How about this study here from your own damn Congressional Research Service that says marijuana doesn't make you a harmful driver?
Wow.
This is your... I was waving this at Congress staff last week, and they're like, whoa, you can't convince anybody that's true.
Well, no, you got to wear those goggles.
But dude, it's yours. Yeah. So...
Wow.
So if those guys don't know the information, certainly, Joe Smith in Apache County has never even heard it.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go find Joe Smith and
But
tell him prohibition's a lie.
Everybody's seen those inebriated goggles, the marijuana goggles.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
What strength is that weed? How much is that a gram?
Well,
I want to try that shit.
I just figured if you're hotboxing your car, it'd be foggy, and that would make the most sense. That when you can't see the road in front of you, is because of all the cannabis smoke there. But obviously, we don't have that problem today.
Right. The bags are empty. We have solved this problem.
Yeah. We can fix the empty bag problem real quick. That's the good thing about this vaporizer. It just goes and goes, and that's how much I've put through there.
Wow.
Yeah,
when I was growing up, let me take that back. When I was a young marijuana smoker, we came to the idea.
That's when you're really growing up. When you first discover. Yeah.
I was 18, so it was before that. But
I was 24.
Before you didn't smoke marijuana until you were 24?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. How about you, April?
25, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We first time together. Actually, first time was at my jiu-jitsu friend's house, and then I brought that home, and then we smoked together. I was like, you gotta try it. And then we smoked outside, and we're hiding from the cops and making sure that we didn't.
That's super fun hiding from the cops.
Oklahoma's all about the cannabis now, though. They got some brands, and they got everything going on.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Oklahoma, and Oregon are example of a wide open market.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people follow what happened in Oregon.
We got too much weed.
Too much weed, yeah. So much weed that it's
you can't give it away.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually an important thing about marijuana reform and the marijuana world. I look forward to a time in the world where marijuana is no more interesting than Coca-Cola.
Well, also it's the state of Oregon just being too far the fuck away for drug smugglers to drive out there and get it where they just go anywhere else. So yeah, I think Oregon just being in a bad place at the wrong time
way up there in Oregon,
is really the problem. It's a fucking long drive.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's crazy. They have done everything. I think I saw it like $20 an ounce, and just
that's retail.
Yeah.
Now I will say, when I first got involved in marijuana, like I said, I was 18. I went back to my home community and discovered it was weed crazy.
Wow.
It was, and $20 ounces for good bud. And let me be sure I'm looking straight into the camera. People use the word Mexican as if it's an insult for marijuana, but back in the day, all the weed I smoked came from Mexico. It wasn't bricked. There were different land races. People appreciated the quality, and this was, we knew Guerrero Gold and Michoacan and Oaxacan and Acapulco Gold.
Yeah.
So they'll tell you about the modern weed is not your grandfather's weed. I'm a grandfather, and it was.
You weren't smoking the right weed back then either.
Yeah, you weren't smoking the right weed then.
Yeah. Wow, that's funny. Yeah, The government testing says it's increased so much. They weren't testing the good shit back then either.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I lived with some guys that would buy pounds and then sell them, and they got as high as paying $400 for a pound. Meanwhile, we could buy the $95 a pound weed,
Right.
but it looked like it.
Yeah, exactly. You pay for what you get.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for. Yeah. Wow. So if you're a cheapskate, then don't expect to have good weed then. You just happen to have money now. You're smoking the good shit.
Right.
That's funny. So inflation comes with everything.
Well, this has been wide-ranging set of topics.
Yeah. Before we get off, let's talk about the vape cartridges.
Okay.
What do you know about the vape cartridges?
Okay. The word "no" is a really powerful word.
Just say no.
I'm going to say I don't know definitively a lot, but here's some of the things that I've heard. That it's a byproduct of unregulated underground economy cartridges. That some has been associated with vitamin E oil acetate. When vitamin E is heated, when the oil is heated, it's turning into an acetate,
right,
which burns the lungs. And then I've also heard that, lower quality cartridges hadn't been cleaned out as well, leading to heavy metal contaminants.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've definitely seen some differences in the cartridge qualities. Some of them are definitely using cheaper cartridge to make more of them, etc. The cartridge quality definitely makes a difference, and the wick type and what they're wrapped in. I've definitely noticed that.
Yeah.
But the vitamin E thing, they're using that as a thickening agent. You know what? If it's an oil overall,
yeah, it's an oil.
Is it vitamin E to begin with, or was it like?
Yeah, it's vitamin E oil
that they're just sticking in the deals.
Yeah, because you could, they have to use some sort of a vehicle oil, or liquid, and oils are vaporizing apparently really well. I think
because they want that big cloud is what's happening. So
people want the big cloud. Yeah. I have old lungs. I don't need a big cloud.
Yeah,
but
that's what my THC.
More importantly, or let me be sure that I say this. This is super unfortunate for vaping in general.
Yes.
Because people are conflating nicotine-based vaping with this unregulated cartridge illness.
Yeah.
And then using that as an excuse to propagandize new regulations on. Yeah. And I am not an e-cigarette smoker. I quit smoking tobacco in '96.
But it's clear when Philip Morris isn't making e-cigarettes that they've chosen a side.
Right.
Yeah, that they are. There's definitely a clear agenda going on now, and those who are paying the politicians.
Yeah. There's a reason that they tell you that you don't want to see sausage made and you don't want to see laws made. I've spent the last 5 years at the Capitol, and things are really twisty and turny, and people have all sorts of petty, unrelated motives to destroy good legislation, not just in the cannabis world, but after working with legislators for that length of time, I've had some people that I think of as my favorites or heroes, and they're all battling other assholes.
Yeah, sure.
If it was just the assholes, our society would be so destroyed by now.
Right.
Luckily, there's good people that are battling in the mix, but this last year at the state capitol, there was a major effort to try to conflate medical marijuana vape with nicotine vape.
Wow.
And regulate the whole. And it took some pushback from some industry lobbyists and some wide-eyed, honest politicians to stop that, or we would have been screwed.
I mean, we know that cigarettes kill 400,000 people a year.
Right.
These vape cartridges killed 7.
Yeah.
7. Yeah.
Right.
And we gotta stop this. We gotta ban it. We gotta do everything we can. But cigarettes, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to discuss that.
Well, I don't know what kind of health effects nicotine has on a person other than you get addicted to it. I don't know that it causes you to have cancer or emphysema.
Right, but carcinogens have
Right.
been proven
Yeah.
to do that.
There's this, I mentioned earlier that we live in a punishful society.
Yep.
Everybody's aggrieved and want their justice. I think we live in an anxious and afraid society also. And having been at the Capitol, I see that they regulate the fuck out of everything.
Yeah,
They create 1,500 new bills each year. Are there really 1,500 new problems that need to be readdressed?
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that.
Wow.
And vaping, and I'm not a vapor, so I'm not trying to defend my own.
You are wearing one around your neck.
I'm not a nicotine vapor. Thank you. Yeah. That's the point that I'm making here. It's like a tattoo.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do to your body, you go ahead.
Yeah.
I've chosen not to.
Right.
But
you're not opposed to people getting them.
Right. And I'm not opposed to somebody creating a widget and selling 1 million widgets.
Right.
And this is America. People want to see success. They want to feel that they're having success themselves. And you were talking about, but if it's the other guy, then fuck him and bring him.
Right. And that's what it is. We didn't do it first.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. So they're not jumping. They're not joining them. They're going against them.
Yeah. So I believe that, in fact, when I get back to the office this afternoon, I'm expecting to publish an article written by a political expert on how to undo this conflation between nicotine and marijuana cartridges and highlight the fact that, if we had regulation, if people were if you could get cartridges legally, they'd be tested.
Right.
I know that because we just got that bill.
Right.
Yeah.
They have to be tested.
They have to be tested.
If they're going to be retailed, they're going to be tested.
Yeah.
But if you're going to buy them on the corner, they're not going to be tested.
Right.
You're buying them on weed maps, they might not be tested.
Right.
That's the other thing. So those two markets are starting to blend and starting to join each other. The underground and the
unfortunate. That's why Leafly is more trustworthy. No, but I remember when I lived with those guys that were buying pounds and selling ounces. One time a guy came and was showing off his pound, and he tipped over a bottle of Camphofenique.
Oh, wow. On the weed?
Onto the weed.
Yep.
So, of course...
It's paid for.
The part that got the Camphofenique became our house stash.
Right.
But the other stuff kind of smelled like it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And one time, a guy, we were trying to buy a pound.
But luckily, that's camphor, and that's a terpene.
Yeah.
And luckily, that's already in weed. Right. Luckily. But yeah.
Yeah. So another time he came in and he was like, a different person.
Yeah.
Here's your pound. And we put it on the scale, and it's only 14 ounces.
Well, okay. So you're 2 ounces short.
And we're talking for a while, and he says, weigh it again. And so we weigh it again, and it's 16 ounces. Oh, I don't know, man. Sorry, we were confused and all that shit. And here's your money, and we'll talk to you later. And he goes and
weigh it again.
And we're looking at the weed, and 2 bullets roll out.
Oh wow! So he threw 2 on
the
scale.
So, and I'm a lucky man.
Right.
Other people have different stories about bullets.
Yeah. They could have been someplace else. Yeah.
So both of those are stories to highlight the importance of a regulated market.
Yeah. Those 2 bullets could have been, if you argued about the weed a little bit more, they could have been somewhere else. Yeah. yeah, definitely. Well, take the 2 bullets and the 14 ounces and move about your day.
Right.
But yeah, definitely push for regulation next time you have that happen.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been this long haul. I'm looking forward to. I believe that we can win. I'm not saying we're going to, because my political experience.
Nothing's guaranteed.
Nothing's guaranteed. Yep. But if we do win, I'm looking to go back into teaching.
Right.
It had been, and this was something that somebody needed to do. And when I started, there was not too many people willing to.
Right on.
Now,
there's a whole community behind you.
Yeah. Sometimes with a pitchfork, sometimes with a dildo, but sometimes with a pat on the back. Yeah. And want this solved, and then there's so many things that are wrong with society. I was talking to Terry Goddard, former Phoenix mayor, gubernatorial candidate, and so on, and saying, as a teacher, I taught for a dozen years and really had a deep effect on about 1,500 kids' lives. And I feel good about that. But and that was a dozen years. Right. This 2 years, if I do this right, if I do my work, 7 million people's lives change in a day.
Wow.
So
that's a difference.
Yeah. So I can do other stuff later. This is the thing to do now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being a teacher, I know you impacted a bunch of kids because I know they come up to you nowadays and they tell you about it. So you're definitely, those kids are changing other people's lives too. So you're definitely being impactful throughout everything you do. And that's a great thing, is not being selfish, but always giving and always thinking about others. And I definitely see that in you, Michael. And I think other people are definitely starting to see that too. And the why not me's are starting to see, well, it's good for him. And that's the good thing about evolution of the human spirit, I guess, is, we learn as we go.
Right.
So,
well, I really enjoyed being on the show. Yes, I can do another tape. I have a meeting in Chandler in less than an hour, so I need to wrap up.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you coming out, Michael. But thank you for everybody for tuning in. How many views do we have right now? Looks like we got quite a few tuned in.
More than one.
Yeah. So appreciate everybody for tuning in, and thank you for watching us. And if you watched the whole thing, my hat's off to you. That was a great interview. We got a lot of information out there, and thank you for Michael once again for coming out, dude. We definitely had our togethernesses and our differences, and it's good to be back together again and here doing this together for the actual first inaugural broadcast off of Herbal Risings.
Oh, wow.
So this is going to be a more often thing, but thanks to Michael, we actually kicked it off, and we're starting it, which Michael helped us kick off Herbal Risings originally, and he's always been a part of it, so it's awesome to have him as part of this. Now, what did you just hand me?
I hand you a map of the U.S. Capitol complex. We were in.
So this is where we take over. So if you come in from this angle and I.
Pincer movement.
All right. No. So what are we looking at? I'm sorry, man.
That's a map of the U.S. Capitol complex. We were at the Capitol last week, talking to the Congress people and senators about marijuana reform for Arizona.
Wow, the way it's laid out, it's very similar to Phoenix's, huh? The way,
it is. Yeah.
That's interesting because you have the courts right behind the Capitol. Oh, that's pretty cool. So you were down there with NORML?
Yeah.
The National NORML, representing Arizona?
Yeah, we had 4 of our 5 board members were able to,
Wow. Come all the way down.
Yeah, and I was on one of the panels. There's 150 something chapters of NORML around the U.S. and Arizona. We actually have succeeded at the state legislature and changed laws, and we're working in the legalization initiative. So I was on the panel for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So are they? You have the support of National NORML behind you with this legalization, and
yes, yeah, they have been reviewing the language and helped with the research to prove some of the points to help refine the language.
That's awesome. And NORML's built up of lawyers. That's their
There's
main,
a lot of lawyers. Yes.
That's their main focus is law, and that's really what they come down to. So building a bill like this based around law, it's very important to have that kind of support behind you. And
right, it comes down to there's like 3 main things. There's the legal defenses in courts. There's getting legislation and policy. And then there's creating awareness and educational events.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's great things. And obviously the keeping kids with their parents and keeping smelling marijuana, just another thing in the air.
Right.
Those are some great points too, man.
Yes. Just another thing in the air.
Just another thing. When I was in California, they referred to it as incense.
I can see why. Yeah. So sign off to you guys.
You can't. This is my show.
Oh! Hi, guys. Sorry.
We'll say, what the fuck is Mike? See, Mike, if you look over at our on our broadcaster. Actually, the delay's a little bit, but if you go to the main one, April, click on the main broadcast here. Click on there. See my little John Travolta going, what the fuck are you doing here, Michael?
Oh, no.
So we can give you a little toasty.
Oh, there's all that extra stuff.
Yeah, we can drop the bomb on you. So yeah, we'll sign off, and you just don't say anything.
Oh my God, I don't care.
Just no more. It's over. No, I'm kidding. All right, Michael. Thank you very much, buddy. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We are out of here.